across the state of Nevada and in SoCal, too. It's live and local now. Kevin Wall with you until 12 noon. Everybody has been zeroing in on the testimony over the last 2 days of Mark Zuckerberg. The Senate, relatively nice. The story today was a little bit different. The House committee involved got a little bit testy with him. We're talking about Mark Zuckerberg, the owner of and founder of Facebook. And joining us now, Alex Smith, Executive Director of America Rising. And Alex, first of all, thanks for joining us. I know you're busy. I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to be with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
But for those that don't know, what is America Rising?
America Rising is the Republican Party's premier opposition research firm. So we track methodically Democratic candidates around the country ahead of the 2018 midterms and the 2020 presidential cycle.
I want to ask you, because Mark Zuckerberg is kind of an interesting figure. Watching the hearings yesterday, the two Senate committees, I was impressed that, well, he was getting bashed by both Republicans and by Democrats, by people like Pat Leahy and by people like Ted Cruz, diametrically opposed policy-wise. Is this a partisan issue, what's going on with Facebook?
Well, look, I think that anytime there are cameras rolling, Congress really likes to show up and to put on a good show for everyone. I think that's a well-established, nonpartisan sort of proposition. Look, I think that what Facebook is doing is they're doing what's appropriate here. Mark Zuckerberg is coming out. He's taking personal ownership of this issue. He said he was sorry. I think that the bottom line here is that this is a service that none of us was required to sign up for. Privacy is certainly important, and it's of great concern to me and to my generation as we've grown up in the information age. But in this ever-expanding, connected world that we live in, mistakes are bound to happen. And the bottom line is that I'm not willing to trade the freedom to communicate across the globe with people and to start movements and to advocate for my beliefs. Without, I'm not willing to trade that for Congress, basically dictating a bunch of rules that will regulate that speech.
Again, Alex Smith joining us, Executive Director of America Rising, joining us on our City National Bank guest hotline from our nation's capital. One of the problems I had with the testimony, and in particular the testimony involving no less than Ted Cruz, was the issue of who becomes the arbiter of what is good and positive and who is the arbiter for what's outside of those boundaries. Who is it that should decide whether Diamond and Silk, as an example, should have their page taken down? Is it somebody with Facebook? Is it a government entity? Who?
Well, I hope it's certainly not a government entity. I think that every time that we involve the government in something, it inevitably gets messed up. So I'm not in favor of the government doing that. But I do think it is a real concern because, Facebook is the largest platform, I think, online for us to voice our opinions on things. And, to the extent that it's just a couple of guys in a room at Facebook deciding who gets to say what, that's certainly something that should be of concern to all Americans of different viewpoints. I do think, however, though, that Facebook has been proactive in terms of working with law enforcement in a way that I find that's really intriguing. So take, for example, something like the San Bernardino massacre. Apple has fought tooth and nail in court to keep iPhones locked, to not build software that could unlock an iPhone. And I do understand that because once you build that kind of capability, you can't really put that back in the box. But, for Facebook, they've been quick to work with law enforcement in these scenarios where we have mass terroristic events. And I think that is certainly admirable. So, it's a fine line to draw. And I think that Senator Ben Sasse was really eloquent when he sort of pressed Mark Zuckerberg to define what is hate speech in his opinion, and likened, or brought up the possibility that, for example, pro-life activists might be silenced on Facebook if their language is deemed to be upsetting to people on the other side. But I generally got the feel from Mark Zuckerberg that his goal is not to shut out controversial or sort of uncomfortable opinions, but really the baseline that everyone could agree to was that violent opinions are certainly not welcome on Facebook.
Alex, your expertise at America Rising is opposition research, maybe the emphasis on research. And I'm just curious, the question was asked by, I believe it was Ted Cruz, of their workforce, of their people that are, being the arbiters of what's okay and not okay. Are they 70% in the Silicon Valley liberal Democrats, or are they 70% conservative Republicans? Do you have any feel for what the people making these decisions, the final arbiters of what's okay and not okay? Do you have any feel for what these people, what their political persuasions are?
So Mark Zuckerberg has said himself in response to that question that he wasn't sure of the exact makeup of those people. So I can't certainly comment on what he doesn't know. But, I have heard of I've heard of anecdotal accounts from people saying that Facebook took down my post when I posted something, about being pro-gun or being pro-life. And I think that that's certainly concerning, but I will say this for Facebook, that in nearly all of those instances, the matter has been reviewed, and the content has been restored within a couple of hours. I think that that's just sort of a reality in the world that we live in today, is that, where anyone could flag on Facebook something that's inappropriate and cause it to go under review, that's certainly not a great outcome for the person who posted it and wants that information out there right away. But at the same time, there's, in an era where we have mass shootings, where there's terrorism, where people are using the internet, this great tool that we have at our disposal for all kinds of nefarious reasons, there is a legitimate need, I think, for review and for safety in these instances.
And I want to ask you a question, Alex, that goes beyond your expertise and your knowledge and your punditry, if you will.
Oh, geez, you really put me on the spot here.
But I want to ask you, as a consumer, you and your family and your friends, do you worry about the security of your privacy information, that it's not going to be bought and sold by somebody? Do you feel safe that when Mark Zuckerberg says, "I'm sorry and we'll never let this happen again," do you take him at his word?
I do. I really do believe that companies like Facebook and the Silicon Valley giants out there, I think that they are trying to provide the best experience for consumers. But we're also we're living in a new world. I'm sort of, I like to call myself a middle millennial, in that I was born nearly right in the middle of the time frame that defines this generation. So I am young enough to have really grown up with technology, to be pretty fluent in, computers and smartphones, all kinds of things like that. But I do remember a time before all of that. And really, I'm lucky to have experienced a childhood that didn't involve screen time, as they call it today, or, being able to contact everyone at every hour. I mean, I remember the rule in my house was that you couldn't call people after 9 p.m.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
And now we're living in a world where your boss, your neighbor, your enemy, they could all message you at, any time of day or night. And there's this expectation that we have to be responsive, that we have to be sort of on it to respond to that content. And so, look, of course I have concerns about privacy. I've seen my whole world sort of get opened up in the time from when I was a little kid to where I am right now. But, like I said before, I'm not willing to forego all of the freedoms that the internet has afforded me, all of the opportunities that it's afforded me, or, in the wake of these incidents. I think any time that we're trying something new, we're expanding a frontier, that there are mistakes that are bound to happen, there are abuses that are bound to happen, but like anything else, that they aren't significant enough to be a trade-off for me in terms of everything else we get to do online.
I guess we can never go back, can we?
I don't think so, but, I do have some hope that, maybe a generation like mine will sort of consider tempering this ultra connectivity with the world, maybe with our children, and saying, it wasn't such a good thing that kids stay connected to friends, to content at all hours of the day.
Well, Alex, if you ever want to go back with me, you certainly can. I've got an extra brick phone, cell phone that I'll loan out to you if you really like, if you really want to go back in time. Hey, Alex, thank you so much. If folks want to know more about what you folks are up to at America Rising, where do they go?
They can go to AmericaRisingPAC.org. Lots of information there on all of our Democratic friends for this fall.
Oh, I just love it. Alex, thanks so much. We'll have you on again, okay?
Thank you so much. Anytime.